Hey, welcome back to Innovate Africa. And as you know, we look for the innovative. Now, when I say innovation, a lot of people tend to default towards apps and all of that sort of stuff, but that's not exactly what innovation centers around. You could innovate through changing processes. You can innovate through engineering, basically taking physical things, re-engineering it, and getting a different, more innovative outcome, right? So today, that is what I'm going to focus on. As a matter of fact, I'm sure you love rugby as much as I do. And the challenge with rugby is that it's a very high impact sport. The players that we look up to, they are always going at each other, always clashing. How do you keep them safe? And I think the head is the most important thing to focus on, which is why I'm introducing you to Marnus Coetsee today. He is the founder of Protek. And I think the name should say it all. But Marnus, what a pleasure having you on the show. Great having you here. Let's talk a bit about your business and what the purpose behind it is. Yes, you can tell us what you do, but ultimately there's a purpose behind a business. Why you get up in the morning.
Thank you so much for having me, Kieno.
Pleasure.
My purpose is to keep rugby alive. I love the sport. It's taught me so much. I love watching it. But yeah, there's just so much research been coming out the last couple of decades, kind of showing the detrimental effects. And I think especially at a schoolboy level, you go to school to get educated and to get smarter and, go into a functioning adult, and in the process getting a bunch of concussions and detrimental brain damage down the line isn't really a positive thing for society. And so I guess my concern lies in the fact that rugby might not exist in a couple of decades. So I'm on a mission to see what we can do from sort of an engineering physical product standpoint of view to kind of elongate the life of rugby and keep it going forever. So that's my purpose. I love the sport of rugby, and I think it teaches a lot to young boys and girls, and would love to see that propagate throughout time.
So let's then talk about specifically what you do. So it's a phenomenal purpose. I mean, I wish the game will last forever. Love it, as I've said earlier. But what are you doing to help ensure that, just from a physical, everyday build perspective?
Right. So you currently see maybe 10 to 20% of rugby players wearing a scrum cap. Scrum caps are really just designed for abrasions and for cauliflower ear. There's not a whole lot of sort of kinematic data that shows that they really reduce concussions, and so therefore they're not implemented across the board. We are looking at developing I don't want to call it a scrum cap, but really it's a soft shelled helmet that's actually designed and engineered to reduce those kinematic forces that get transferred to a player's brain, to actually not prevent concussions, but reduce the severity. And the way we like to think about it is like a seatbelt. You're going to wear a seatbelt in your car. It's the first thing you do when you get in the vehicle. It makes sense. It's implemented by laws around the world. It's not fail safe. You still can get seriously injured in a car crash. And wearing our product will never be not 100% make you immune from concussions, but it'll reduce the severity and eliminate a lot of the lower sort of impacts. So we engineer a physical product that's worn on a player's head. It's sort of a soft shelled helmet. It'll look and be quite similar to what you know as a scrum cap today, but what's inside and the technology behind it, we're trying to revolutionize the space and really look at it from a completely new perspective.
So how far are you with that process at the moment? Do you have a prototype that you're testing? So let's just talk a little bit about it. I want to go into the whole ideification side of it, which always interests me, but I just want us to sort of draw a line around the product itself, right? So how far are you with this particular process as a business?
So we've currently got a prototype that we're testing in lab, and so we're iterating on that prototype, and we're really just trying to find the best possible combination of materials to kind of reduce the forces at play. And so we've built a testing methodology around sort of what we found in other sports and other areas, and then we've kind of collected a variety of materials and not even, I wouldn't even call them all materials. There's kind of mechanical sort of systems out there that we're trying to implement into a soft shelled form that you can wear in a rugby field that, meets all the requirements, doesn't injure other players. So we've got this prototype that we're testing and iterating on, and really trying to refine into the best possible product. We're not looking to kind of hit the market with the first, the first sort of breakthrough we have. we're really trying to get it to a point where it's as best as we think, we can make it. And it's kind of at the point where it can actually make a real impact in the sport and in players' lives.
Right. So I want to get to the ideification side of things, which I alluded to earlier, right? And I think this is something that a lot of aspirant entrepreneurs grapple with. They've got an idea, but they sit with that idea and they never ever do anything with it. It always becomes a conversation point. So let's talk a little about you, your skills, and the ideification around this product that could potentially save the lives of rugby players.
Yeah, so I was in engineering school at varsity in my second year, and I remember sitting in class one day after a scrimmage we had where I took a bit of a knock to the head, and I was wearing my scrum cap at the time, and sitting in class and just not being able to focus, and I was definitely concussed and just in a bit of a daze and hadn't slept well for a few nights, and I just started kind of thinking, oh, there's got to be something that we can. There's got to be a product out there that can help me in this case. And I remember kind of looking online for a scrum cap that actually was proven to try and help with concussions, and there wasn't anything out there. So there was a gap, a need. And obviously I was in engineering school, so in my free time I started tinkering. I started playing around with things. I started testing scrum caps and just taking Arduinos with simple accelerometers on them and dropping them on the floor with weights and putting some other materials in instead of the scrum cap, and realizing, hey, there's actually a huge improvement here. Like, how has no one thought of this? And the tinkering became, a business plan and a couple pitch competitions and so on and so forth. And I didn't really take it far beyond university, and it was always in the back of my mind and kind of itching at me. And then, watching the Springboks play and watching, guys get just completely knocked out cold, and kind of really worrying for their safety and for the future of the sport. And then you start speaking to young parents or parents of young children and saying, oh, there's no way my son's going to play rugby. That's way too dangerous. And thinking, oh man, that's a shame. It's taught me so much about life and about teamwork, and I can go on and on about that. But no, hopefully there's got to be something that can be done about this. And so, I decided to take this on full time and really commit to this solution and to changing things.
From idea to action, though, take us through that process. What are the key lessons that you've learnt? Because you tinkered, which is great, and that's always my advice to entrepreneurs. Just mess around. There's another word I normally use, but we won't use it on TV. Mess around and find out, right? And once you realize, oh, there might be something here, you can then take the next step. But it's that next step that's always the challenge. So talk to me about the step that actually led to the formation of this particular business.
I would say it was pressure internally. It was the want to see a change, and an interest in seeing how that change can happen, and seeing sort of what can be done in that space. And I was lucky that things really aligned. I had the experience as playing as a rugby player. I had the sort of education of engineering, and the love of entrepreneurship, and kind of all put together, and just placed this pressure on me that was the only thing I knew I had to go and do. There was no other option for me. So it happened very naturally. I'm someone that really believes in following my gut, and that was what my gut was screaming at me to do. I would say it was seamless, and I didn't resist it. I had lots of other people in my circles maybe tell me, I don't know if this is a great idea. You're gonna drop your income source, and that's a crazy idea, and this and that, and good to hear as well. But I had to follow my gut and kind of go after what I was passionate.
So you take the leap, you start the business, you start working on this, but then people need to take you seriously, because it's the market acquisition, or at least just trying to get a minimum viable product out that you can actually test with metrics that you can potentially present to investors, right? Was that an easy journey? And who's the first person that started believing in you and sort of helped you on this journey?
It's a really good question, Once again, it all happened very naturally so far, and has been a very natural process, which I think is homage to it being a good idea and being something that I should spend my time and energy on, and something that the world does need. And I remember cold calling Chris Leott. He's got a mountain bike sort of motorbike protection company. They invented something called the lead neck brace back in 2008.
Yeah.
And so really established entrepreneur and someone who saw an issue in his life that he went and solved. And I've kind of was reading about a story and what he got up to and thought, oh, there's some similarities here. And hey, they've got these cool facilities in Cape Town that really align with what I'm working on. And so I called him, and there was just an instant really positive response and a attitude of kind of how can I help or how can we work together. And that was so encouraging because it's somebody who had been through the process, and he had many doubts and many questions, and he still, I mean, I go to him to get kind of torn apart, which is really good. Makes me think and see things I didn't see before, and he's got a breadth of experience to kind of ask those questions from.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's definitely got just a firm belief in I think an interest and a curiosity in what can be done in this space as well. So, and it's really relevant, sort of, I guess, experience and advice that he's able to provide to me. So it's belief in somebody that's done something very similar before. So that's.
I love it. And then what about the rugby unions, like Western Province Rugby, the Bulls, SA Rugby? Have you tried approaching them at all to help you, or do you believe it's still early stage and you want to go to them with something which is maybe a little bit more tried, tested, and implementable?
Yes, I think I'm in a unique position where I've got to, I'm facing a sort of a culture that doesn't want to see change, that isn't maybe so protection oriented, and it's kind of a tough guy mentality out there, I think, and for good reason, and a lot of good things come with that. I think that's how you win a rugby game in a lot of ways, but I think I've got one shot at kind of approaching them and making that shift. And there's definitely interest in player welfare, and I think the culture is shifting, so I think it's a really good and unique time for me. But I want to be very careful about how I approach that. And exactly as you said, I want to show up with a viable solution, with something that can be worn and is not going to interrupt with how they do things currently, but has proven data behind it that says this is going to protect you, and this will keep your players safer with a measurable metric. And not just a small improvement of single digits or 10-15%, but we're looking for a really a seismic shift in protection. And so I think I'm really waiting to time that perfectly. I think it's two forces that I'm dealing with.
How far are you from that seismic shift, though? Because dropping things in a lab at a university to where you are right now, what would you say in terms of progress? Where are you?
I think we're probably about 6 to 8 months away from being able to approach someone like a union or a player. What we need to do is sort of finalize all of our I guess engineering loose ends and kind of bring it together into a product that is visually appealing. I think if it doesn't look cool, no one wants to wear it, and it can be the most engineered and safe thing out there, and maybe you can force players to wear it in certain circumstances, or a mother might really strap that thing on a boy's head before he runs off on the field. But if he's not going to want to wear it, his friends aren't going to want to wear it, adoption won't happen. So I think we're in an interesting sort of, and I really enjoy that part about this project at the moment is the sort of aesthetic but engineering kind of synergy. It's, I guess that's design at the end of the day. So
good looking, but you're going to make it functional at the end of the day. We're limbic beings, right? So emotionally, we either engage with the product or we don't. And if we feel uncomfortable with it, even though there are some benefits, we tend to stay away from it because we believe, if I wear it, I'm going to look like this, that, or the other thing, which is why people like Apple computers. They're beautiful computers. They're probably not more functional than most others, but they're aesthetically pleasing, right? And yes, they've got long battery lives and all that sort of stuff. But ultimately, it's just a beautifully crafted machine that works. And this is not a plug for Apple. I'm just saying, if I'm just looking at the design ethic around it and the point that you're making right now. But how do you actually go about testing this, though? So, because if you're not with a rugby union, if you don't have rugby players putting it on, bashing into each other, right? How do you go about actually testing this?
So there's a couple of different ways. I'd say the most clean explanation I could give is essentially a crash test dummy with a whack of accelerometers within its head. on a neck form that's meant to mimic and behave, like a normal neck. Because if you get a knock to the head, your neck is your sort of first line of defense. And then we try and set up sort of collisions that are very similar to what would happen on a rugby field. We try to mimic it as best as possible. And so whether that's, a knee to the side of the head or a head-on-head clash, we can use 2 crash test dummies to do that. So we try to mimic it as best as possible with these, weights and speeds that are representative of a rugby field. We try to look at data from collisions that have happened previously in rugby and sort of where, what 2 body parts are colliding at what speeds or what frequency, how many times in a game. So we try to take as much data from the real world and mimic it in a lab, because obviously we can't find two people that want to run into each other, and even then there's not much data to be pulled from that. So and then from there, you try to make it as more real world as possible. So, we'll look into more studies that kind of involve, using actual grass turf, using actual sort of impactors that mimic a knee or an elbow or a shoulder. So I guess starting as in a laboratory and moving to as real world as possible. Eventually, we'd love to run actual clinical trials where we follow a university rugby team or a club rugby team for a season. We try and get data from before and after them wearing these caps. So trying to get it as more real world as possible. Obviously, with that, it's more complexity, more time, more cost as well.
But as you can hear, and I'm looking at you right now, because you might be John Dobson, or you might be Mark Alexander. You need to reach out to this young man and see how you can help him achieve what he wants to achieve. So, Marnus, who are some of the other people that you'd like to work with to actually help fast track what you're doing? They might be listening. Huh? You could be one of them. So they might be listening right now. Who would you like to work with?
So anybody in the rugby space, anybody that is currently coaching a team or involved with rugby on a daily basis, and we'd love to work with teams or people that are looking after player welfare and kind of hear what are the challenges and what what are they looking for in a solution. We want player feedback as well, so we'd love to implement our product into into his team setting. Any old rugby players, any retired professional players that have got influence in the space and interest in rugby still and in business, get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to learn more about sort of what needs there are in the market, what you see, and how you see the sport changing from people who have been in the thick of it and have an interest in business at this point in their careers.
So what's your family saying about it now? What are your friends saying about it now that you're actually on the journey? Given the initial, hey, don't do this, you might lose some money. Are people sort of coming around? Are they going, okay, you onto something here?
Definitely. I've felt a lot of support from my close circle. I think they think that I'm crazy enough to pull it off, first of all. I think some of the lab results we've gotten to have just been really exciting. In a short period of time, we've been able to, without putting a lot of capital up either, we've been able to really have an impact and get lab data that is better than anything that's out there at the moment. So it just shows what a short period of time and some passion and ingenuity can produce. So I think I've got them convinced.
I like that. And then finally, advice to entrepreneurs who are starting their journeys. They might have crazy ideas. They might have some of the experience that you have, well, relevant to what they want to do. Just what are some of the core lessons that you've learned up to this point as an entrepreneur that you might want to share with others?
I think just do. I think it's the most important thing. Don't get caught in sort of the there's so many options out there and so many possible first steps. I don't know which one to choose. Just do, just go. And secondly, I'd say reach out, ask people for help.
Yeah.
I've come a long way with, asking people for crazy favors, for collaborations, for, just feedback. Most of the time it goes nowhere. You'll learn something from the process, but you'll get one that sticks and it really will propel you through.
Marnus Coetsee, what a pleasure having you on this show. And once again, we've shown that innovation is more than just ones and zeros and apps. It's engineers trying to fix problems to help rugby players, for example. It could be anything. You could be in the engineering sphere. You could just be sitting and thinking, maybe if I change a process, I can actually impact people's lives. It's all called innovation, and we speak to innovators who impact lives on the African continent, and Marnus Coetsee is one of them. So it's been great having him here. Hopefully you can reach out to him. You'll see my email at the end of this. Reach out to me and I'll connect you to Marnus directly. But I'll see you on Innovate Africa next week.